What is going on, everyone? Jim here from RC After Dark. Working on the Fy06 tonight, guys. It is nighttime, Friday night here. We ran that truck one time and we ended up blowing the ESC on it. It blew about 5 minutes after I finished doing the video for it, so it didn't last too long. We just assumed that the battery went dead, truck quit working, steering still worked, figured it hit the low voltage cutoff. Pulled the battery out, charged it up, put it back in the truck, and she wasn't moving. So steering still worked. We just didn't have anything on the ESC. So we're pretty sure we fried the ESC on that. Since then, since it's my brother's truck, he went out and got a bunch of new parts for it, and I'm about to slap them on there. So we have a brand new Spektrum DX4C radio sitting in the background. We have a Spektrum SR410 4-channel receiver sitting here. We have a Traxxas Titan RS380 motor. I think it's a 20 turn, but I could be wrong. It's actually an 18 turn. So we have an 18 turn 380 motor and an Axial AE5 waterproof ESC. So I'm going to start taking the body off on this, guys, and get to putting the new parts on. So before we take the body off, there's a bunch of screws we need to pull out. One screw here, another one here. One screw right here where this little hole is, another one on the other side. Initially, or normally, you would have to pull off this body panel to get access to the screw. I drilled a couple holes on the side just to make it easier so we can just go right through the side of the body there to get that screw out. So we pull out the two on the top, one here on this side, one on the other side. Two underneath the battery tray, which is one right way up there. My finger's barely pointing at it, and another one down here on the other side. Four on the bottom of the chassis here, one there, that one, and then two right up here on the front bumper. And then we'll be able to pull the whole body off of it. So I'm going to get to taking those screws out real quick, and we'll be right back. Alrighty, got all the screws removed. Gonna pull this down out from underneath the battery tray, the last little bracket there. And we should be able to take the body right off. And there is the body. Alright, we are looking at that funky little motor. Weird little motor here, brushless motor, but the outside of the motor turns. So, not something that you would normally see in a RC truck. Probably something more along the lines of a helicopter or an airplane style brushless motor. Nevertheless, we're going to be pulling that little guy out and dropping in the RS380. Need to pull out the ESC, the receiver, and yeah, so we'll be pulling the motor, pull the ESC, pull the receiver, and we're going to start working on that right about now. And I guess we'll just start off doing something simple here and just start unplugging stuff. It's the ESC we just unplugged out with the steering servo. Unplug all these little motor wires, which you guys are not getting a good view on. And they are not wanting to unplug. Well, you know what, guys? I'm just going to leave that plugged in. Reason being is I'm pulling out the whole ESC anyways, and I'm pulling out the old motor, so I'm just going to leave that stuff attached and take it all out in one shot. And right here on the bottom of the chassis, guys, we have 3 screws. 1, 2, and 3. And we need to pull those out in order to get the ESC out. So that's what we're going to start working on. We'll pull out these 3 screws real quick, remove that ESC, and continue. And we are back. Took those 3 screws out, and there she is. Whole ESC is now removed, I guess, except for the motor. So I'm just going to put it off to the side there. Work on pulling out this receiver, which is double-sided tape to the little micro servo. Out she comes right there. We're just going to put that little guy off to the side, save it for later. Maybe use it with another vehicle, who knows. But we'll throw this little guy on the side. It is a 4-channel receiver, guys, so that is good to know. The stock receiver is a 4-channel, so it might be convenient to use this in something else somewhere later on down the line. Alright, so guys, the next thing I'm going to do, me personally, it doesn't really matter what anybody else wants to do, but this little plastic plate that the ESC is sitting on, the ESC is just double-sided tape to this plastic plate. So I'm going to separate the plate from the tape and from the ESC and reinstall this plate to mount the new ESC on top of. Alrighty, plate is off, double-sided tape is off. I'm going to reinstall this little guy and then get to taking out the motor and going from there. Alright, we are back. Servo plate, or ESC plate, is mounted back on. Now the servo, guys, Feiyue uses a micro servo in here, held down or mounted in with this little bracket. We were going to attempt to get a Savox SW0231 MG and try to mount that in here. So we would, if we did that, we'd definitely have to custom fit it. So we're probably going to have to blow in some new holes over here off on the side and push this servo, or push the new servo over and back a little bit to get it mounted in. My brother did not order a new servo, so we're just going to use the Feiyue servo at the moment, since it is a 3-wire servo. Hopefully it'll plug into that Spektrum receiver and work. If it doesn't, then we'll be getting a new servo for it. Like I said, either we're going to get a full-size Savox SW0231 MG, or we will get a high-tech mini servo or micro servo. So we'll find out. If it works, it works. If it doesn't, we'll be replacing it. Alright guys, moving on to the next step, pulling out the motor. So we're going to start off right here, remove this screw. That's going to take off this half of the gearbox cover and give us access to the motor. And we are back, have that screw out, and get ready to pull off this little side cover. And there she is. A little bit of dirt down in there, I see. Blended in with the grease. Alrighty guys, the next thing to do is to remove the 3 screws across the top of the motor bracket right here. Pull that out of the way, and to remove the pinion gear. So we'll get to loosening all that stuff up, and we'll be right back. Alrighty guys, remove the 3 screws across the top. Took a little bit doing. The plastic for the shock tower here on the front is kind of countersunk into these into this aluminum bracket here, so had to pry up on that a little bit to get this bracket off. Pulling off the pinion gear, already loosened that up. I'm just going to squeeze that little guy out of there. And the next thing will be removing the motor, which lifts right out. And there we go. Piece of cake. Next thing to do is remove this bracket right here off the motor and reattach it to our new motor. And we're back guys for a second here. Interesting to see that the motor is, this little motor plate is like a cam. So when you have it sitting in here, if you have a different size gear on it, you can just twist this around to get your adjustment for your different size gears and adjusting your lash. So it's kind of cool the way that adjusts there. Didn't realize that until just now. Alrighty guys, we were back and got lucky on that one. Inner diameter on the pinion gear that came with the car on the brushless motor is larger than the stock RS380 pin coming off the motor, the shaft coming off the motor. So smaller shaft on the RS380 versus the brushless motor that was in it. We did get lucky though. My brother didn't order any extra gears for this, but the Feiyue Fy06 did come with some spare parts, box wrench or 4-way wrench, couple Allen wrenches, a hairpin in there, the keys for the remote, and 2 pinion gears. And luckily the inner diameter on this was perfect for the RS380. It was a smaller shaft, and we were able to get those on there. So I used the smaller gear of the 2, mounted that on there. Not too sure what the tooth count is on that. Couldn't exactly read it on the side of the gear. It's kind of a bad stamp on it. So nevertheless, we did get lucky. Do have a gear that fits it, so we're going to go ahead and install this back into the truck. Alrighty guys, we have the motor back in the vehicle, and I'm getting ready to set the gear lash, so I just got a little piece of paper here. Just a standard piece of copier paper. I'm going to wedge it in between the pinion gear and the spur gear, and then press the motor into it, tighten everything back down, and then pull the paper out, and we should have the correct gear lash. Alright, so we have our piece of paper wedged in here. Motor's pinched up against it. Just need to put these or install these screws back on for our upper bracket, and slide that paper out, and we should be good. And there we go. Work that guy out of there, and whoa, camera's falling over there. That should be our proper gear lash right there, guys. Alright, so we're going to put our dust cover back on this and get ready to install the ESC. And there we go, guys. Motor's installed, dust cover's back on. When you're putting this dust cover back on, guys, it can be a little bit of a pain in the butt. You have to kind of snap this top portion back in before you attempt to screw in the lower portion down there. If that top portion isn't snapped in, you'll never be able to get that screw to line up. So you need to snap this in first, and then the screw will slide right in without a problem. Alrighty, here we are on the other side of the vehicle. Next portion, putting our ESC in and dropping in our SR410 4-channel receiver. Alright guys, here's a look at our new ESC. We have the pins set in the right position right here. We have our drag brake set at 100%. We have our battery set to LiPo. This can run on 2S or 3S, depending on your motor size. For this truck with this little 18-turn motor, you should have no problem running a 3S battery. So that's how we're going to run it, 100% brake and set for a LiPo, and we're going to get ready to install this guy. Probably install it with the wires facing backwards so we can get as much length going to the battery as possible. Alrighty guys, with a piece of double-sided tape, we have our ESC mounted. It's as far over to the right as it can go and as far back as it can go. Just enough room. Have a piece of double-sided tape on this SR410. Just enough room to plop that right there on top of the servo. So that's going to be the new home for that receiver. And there we go, guys. We've got the receiver mounted. The ESC is mounted. Had to pull the steering servo out to center that. Had to reverse the steering servo on the controller. Had to reverse the motor wires around to get that in the right direction. But she's all hooked up and she is all working. Alrighty guys, got it back together. Plugging the juice in there. Steers to the right, steers to the left. Everything seems to be working, throttle, brake, whole 9 yards. So we're going to put the body back on this thing, slap it all together, and then probably take it out tomorrow on the track in the daylight and see what she can do. And there you go, everyone. She is all back together with a complete heart transplant, brain transplant, new ESC, new receiver, new motor. This is all the old stuff here. Looking at the Axial AE5 paperwork, you see that can run on 2S or 3S LiPo, 5 to 9 cells, nickel metal or NiCad. Motor limit 12 turn on 2S, 18 turn on 3S. So we have an 18 turn RS380, so we should be okay on 3S if we choose to use that. But right now we are currently running on 2S. So there you go, guys. She's all back together. We will wait till tomorrow to get this guy out on the track and see what she can do. But many thanks to all of you, all the old subscribers, all the new subscribers. Thanks a lot, guys. Very much appreciated. We'll see you all in the next video.